former Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Secretary of State for Trade and Industry, and EU Commissioner Lord Leon Brittan is uniquely placed to assess the Greek crisis. He's now chairman at UBS Investment Bank, and he joins me now. Firstly, good morning. Thank you very much indeed for coming in this morning. We've heard President Sarkozy talking about standing shoulder to shoulder with Greece. Is that kind of solidarity going to be enough?
I don't think the words are enough. The markets have got to believe that they'll do something if push comes to shove. But much better than actually having to do something is pushing the Greeks to put their own house in order. And that's what's been happening in the last few weeks rather effectively. I don't often think I'm going to agree with left-wing Greek trade unionists, but on the factual side of things, although they draw completely different conclusions, when one of them said that Greece is now a European economic protectorate, he was not far off the mark, because every move is being watched, every move is being discussed, and there are people crawling over Greek finances from the European Commission, the European Central Bank, and actually the IMF as well.
It's interesting, this idea about it being a European protectorate. Does that mean, therefore, that you think the IMF will not get involved? George Papandreou is not ruling that out yet, is he?
Yeah, well, he's not ruling it out because he wants to have that as a kind of a weapon to ensure that the Europeans come up with what is necessary. But it isn't going to happen, I don't think. The IMF people who are there at the moment are technical experts, and that's fine. But Europe is perfectly capable, one way or another, of providing the help if it is necessary. But the hope is that it won't be necessary because of the action taken by the Greeks in reducing their budget deficit. And last week we saw that the Greek debt issue of $5 billion was massively oversubscribed because the markets were taking that lesson. So that's really what European leaders are hoping. Whether it works out that way, we can't be sure, but it's not looking that bad from that point.
So you think that actually the Greek austerity on its own might be enough?
It might be if it is properly implemented. And of course, some of the measures are ones that government can just introduce. Others, they have to get through Parliament. And then, of course, there is the question of strikes and riots and things of that kind. So everybody will be watching very closely to see whether what is said is actually done. But if it looks as if it's being done, and if the European leaders are breathing down their necks, then it is possible that that will be sufficient for the crisis to be, at least in the short run, averted.
Stepping back from the crisis a little bit, does this show us that a kind of one-size-fits-all euro doesn't really work, that the Eurozone has got some major flaws in it to be addressed?
That's what you mean by work, you see. I mean, you could say that having Greece in the Eurozone without an ability to devalue means that in the end, it is forced to take measures to deal with its own problems. The measures taken so far are short-term measures, but they could lead to long-term measures. And I've always thought that one of the attractions of the Eurozone is that for the countries that are having difficulties, they've got to face up to their own problems and can't have a short way out, because an easy way out. And I've always thought that devaluation is a kind of a drug. It may give you a short-term kick, but it actually produces long-term effects that are not very good.
Now, I can't have you on the programme without asking you a little bit about your entry into politics, because you came in February 1974 into Parliament, which was the hung Parliament that we're all now looking backwards and thinking that this may happen again.
Yes.
You must have very, very clear memories of it. What would your advice to David Cameron be to avoid it happening again?
Well, there's nothing he can do to avoid it happening again, because whether it happens depends on the votes of millions of people. But what is even more difficult is that the millions of people can't vote for or against a hung Parliament. It's a statistical question of whether it ends up that way. So my advice is to keep your nerve and say what you really think needs to be done. And I think that if you tell people that we are in a financial mess of a major kind and we're going to do whatever's necessary to sort it out.
Including big deficit cuts?
Including big changes in public finances, yes, I think people will believe you better. So that would be my message to David Cameron.
Lord Brittan, thank you very much indeed for coming and talking to us this morning.